Reeves, and this is my Of Mice and Men book presentation. The title of my book is Of Mice and Men, written by John Steinbeck. This book provides an excellent portrayal of people and is captivating and exciting. I believe that this book can be legitimately referred to as a classic. Ultimately, the reality of about the American dream and loneliness are the book's main themes. Throughout the experiences of the characters, Steinbeck explores the struggles marginalized individuals during a time of economic hardship and fragility of human aspirations. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck uses the relationship between George and Lenny to explore themes of isolation, the unobtainable um, American dream, by demonstrating how societal pressures and the personal limitations can make people's dream impossible. Setting. There are two primary protagonists of Mice and Men. Lenny is a tall, curious man with autism, but because of his lack of knowledge, Lenny relies on his friend George for guidance and help. Lenny is guided by George, a short but knowledgeable man. Throughout the narrative, George is burdened by his concern for Lenny, but he is obviously devoted to his friend. Candy is an elderly ranch handyman who feels like he's being held back by his age. Later in the narrative, Candy murders his dog out of mercy, foreshadowing the death of Lenny. Curly, who is content with who he is, he frequently offers guidance and assistance to the main characters. Exposition and rising action. Exposition. Lenny and George are presented to us. Their goal is to work on a ranch in order to eventually save enough money to manage and care for their own property. George describes to Slim an earlier occurrence that took place before the story. And he quotes, "He's seen this girl in a red dress. The dumb guy like he is, he wants to touch everything he likes." So George touched the girl's red dress, and everyone said that he assaulted her. So they had to flee to the new ranch, and they were on the move like the whole story because Lenny kept on messing up George. So, rising action. Curly takes a disliking to Lenny because he hates larger people. Due to this, he fights with Lenny, which Lenny undergoes George's orders, and he eventually wins by brutally breaking Curly's hand. Candy overhears George and Lenny's dream of owning a land and offers his savings to join them, giving their dream a new hope. However, Lenny's habit of petting soft things continues to cause problems. And after accidentally killing his puppy in the barn, Lenny meets Curly's wife, who confides him about her loneliness. Climax, falling action, and resolution. The story reaches its peak when Lenny, trying to silence Curly's wife after she let him touch his hair, accidentally breaks her neck. Horrified by what he has done, Lenny flees to the riverbank, the place where George told him to hide if he got into trouble. Falling action. As the ranch hands form a lynch mob to hunt down Lenny, George realizes that dream of owning a land is now impossible. He finds Lenny at the riverbank, and knowing that Lenny will be killed or hanged or in prison, George ultimately makes the decision to kill Lenny, which breaks his heart. Resolution. After Lenny's death, the other ranch hands, unaware of George's deep sorrow, carry on with their lives. George is now left alone, with his dream shattered, and the novel now closes on a note of despair and hopelessness. The unachievable American dream theme. In Of Mice and Men, most of the characters, despite working on the ranch during the Great Depression, have dreams and aspirations of different lives. For example, when Lenny says, "How long is it going to be till we get the little piece of land and live off the fat of the land and tend to the rabbits?" Um, for this quote, Lenny says the dream is simple and tangible, focuses, and he focuses on his desire to take care of soft animals. However, George, on the other hand, this dream represents freedom from hardships and injustices they face as workers. The question Lenny asks reveals his deep longing and impatience to achieve the dream, but it also foreshadows the impossibility of this vision, given the obstacles and tragedies that await them. This quote captures the novel's tension between hope and reality. While the other characters desperately cling to the dream, Steinbeck suggests that it remains forever out of reach. Um, the next quote is by Curly's wife, and she says, "He says he was gonna put me in the movies. Says I was a natural." So, in this quote, Curly's wife is reflecting her unfulfilled dreams and life imagined for herself, which contrasts with her isolated and unhappy existence due to her unwanted marriage. She expresses regret for what could have been, suggesting that she feels trapped and disconnected and isolated. Her loneliness is intensified by the fact that she feels alienated from the people around her, which are the ranchmen and the handyman. As the only woman on the ranch, she has no meaningful relationships. Her husband, Curly, is possessive and controlling, and the ranch workers avoid her out of fear for Curly's jealousy. So, the third quote was, I tell you, I ain't used to living like this. I could have made something of myself. This quote is also spoken by Curly's wife, and she is reflecting on her unfulfilled dreams and the life she imagined for herself, which contrasts sharply with her isolated and unhappy existence, which was stated in the last quote. She expresses her regret for what could have been, stating that she feels trapped and disconnected from her current life. Her loneliness Their vision of owning their farm symbolizes the broader ideal of the American dream, where hard work and determination are supposed to lead to success, prosperity, and independence. However, as the novel unfolds, it became clear that this dream is unattainable, especially for characters like Lenny and George who face systematic obstacles and personal limitations. Um, Loneliness theme. George directly addresses loneliness that defies the lives of ranch workers. In the phrase, guys like us that work on ranches are the loneliest guys in the world. They got no family. They don't belong no place. They come to a ranch and work up a state, and then they go into town and blow their stake. In this quote, George addresses the loneliness that defines the lives of the ranch workers, and these men who constantly move from one ranch to another have no stable home or community, which reflects the broader theme of loneliness that runs through the novel. Steinbeck portrays a world where the characters live isolated lives, like away from everybody else. And plus that it's in the time of the Great Depression, that doesn't help. Okay, what I enjoyed about the book. Okay, so at the heart of the novel is the relationship between George and Lenny, which is filled with the tenderness and frustration and a sense of duty. George's role as Lenny's caretaker adds emotional complexity to me. Um, Also, the powerful themes. The characters of Mice of Men are deeply memorable because they embody complex and human emotions and struggles, and yeah, the engaging plot. Because from the beginning, I was drawn into George and Lenny's dream of owning a farm, and this goal provided like a driving force for the plot to me. It is entertaining, memorable characters, dialogue, engaging plot, in historical context. So, Steinbeck's dialogue is one of the novel's defining traits. The characters speak in realistic language, and they're forced to travel from place to place and seeking work on ranches. So, the engaging plot, George and Lenny's dream of owning a small farm gives the plot some type of momentum. In a historical context, um, it captures an economic despair of instability of the era where the jobs were scarce and many people like George and Lenny were forced to travel from place to place. In conclusion, Of Mice and Men is a timeless novel that captures readers with its memorable characters, each of whom reflects complex emotions and struggles. Steinbeck's use of realistic and powerful dialogue adds authenticity, while the engaging plot, driven by the characters and inevitable tragedy, keeps the reader emotionally invested in the novel's rich historical context of the Great Depression deepens the themes of isolation, marginalization, and the unavailable American dream. Together, these elements create a deeply moving and thought provoking story that remains impactful and relevant. And that concludes my presentation.